Welcome back to Teach English Now. In our last video, we looked at tech tools organized according to categories developed by Pittler, Hubble, and Kuhn. In this video, we now want to help you choose tools from each of these 9 categories in a way that strengthens your ability to create lesson plans. To do this, we are going to introduce and discuss 6 teaching events based loosely on Robert Gagne's Events of Instruction. For those of you that have taken our first specialization, these events are correlated to the lesson plan elements you may have previously been taught in Course 3. To begin, the 6 events we will discuss today are organized in the chronological order of an ideal lesson plan. Let's review what that might look like. Generally speaking, teachers like to start their classes with some sort of attention-getting activity, followed by a discussion of the major theme and objectives of the day. After creating interest and explaining the major objectives, many teachers would then give time for the instruction or lecture itself. This might be done through face-to-face teaching, often by giving lectures, going through examples and practice problems, and so forth. What happens next? Well, generally, this teacher-centered instruction is followed by a more student-centered focus. Students now practice the skills and knowledge they have been given and then demonstrate their proficiency and skills back to the teacher, either with a test or presentation of some kind. Finally, after students show what they know, a teacher assesses the students and gives appropriate feedback. Okay, so that is a rather typical lesson plan. Did you catch the 6 events? Let's summarize with another graphic organizer. Event 1, stimulate background information. This is often called a warm-up or attention getter and is done not only to see what students already know, but to introduce students to the new theme. Event 2, organize and manage information. While this may be done at any point in a lesson, often teachers, after or during the warm-up, give an indication of the major objectives of the instruction. Gagne calls this informing learners of the objectives. Event 3, giving instruction. This portion of the lesson plan is intended to present new information. It is often scaffolded, meaning that it is presented in bite-sized chunks meant to help learners retain the information. Event 4, practice and collaboration. This portion of time in a classroom, students spend time trying to understand and practice the concepts taught. It is sometimes done in stages as well, meaning that students may go from easier to more complex problems or from guided to independent tasks. Event 5, produce and demonstrate proficiency. Generally, at the end of a practice period, students demonstrate their skills and understanding. This may be, for example, in front of a class in the form of a presentation, in the form of an essay, or often in the form of a test or quiz. Event 6, assessment and feedback. Teachers in this final stage or event must now assess the presentation, essay, or test and give feedback to the learner. The learner may be given an opportunity to revise or retest their skills. Or an instructor, seeing what students did or did not understand, may begin the cycle of instruction yet again. Okay, we have now introduced or reintroduced you to some events of instruction, and now we want to apply this understanding to the selection of tech tools. Are you with me so far? Good, because here's where it gets fun. Buckle up. So, you have your 9 categories, which we represented vertically, with a lot of tech tools to choose from. And now we have shown you 6 events of instruction here represented horizontally. Now, how can this combined graphic be useful to you? Let's do a bit of what morphologists showed newbie in a previous video. First, as you are planning your lesson, consider what portion of the lesson you are on. Let's start like newbie from the very beginning, with stimulating background information. How do you do this in a traditional way? Do you use questions, pictures, perhaps an anecdote, a graph, or a story? Fantastic! Those are wonderful ways to begin a class. Now let's look for tools that might help you accomplish the very same thing you are used to doing in a traditional format. Let's start with asking questions. For questions to give learners, you can use tools found in Category 3. Now let's think about pictures. Well, pictures and graphic organizers you might find in Category 2. Don't forget great stimulating and provocative videos created by folks in instructional media in Category 5. Those can be great for a warm-up activity. Want to create your own instructional media to stimulate background information? Then you might want to create a PowerPoint or other cool presentation, category 6, or look up some interesting facts that you can use to start a discussion, category 7, and so forth. In other words, I love to stare at these categories and the list of tools as I lesson plan so that I can get ideas of how to best stimulate background knowledge in my learners. Now, can you go through the same process for the second event of instruction? You sure can. There are tools from multiple categories to help you manage and organize your content, and then share the content and objectives with students. I love to share objectives with students by going over a master list that I create in a paper syllabus with the help from tools in Category 1 and Category 5. Or perhaps I send out an email reminder, Category 5, or post the objectives in an LMS Category 4 the night before, so that students know the topic ahead of time. This event of instruction I actually think of as being timeless, meaning that I think it should be available anywhere and everywhere for students. Learners should always be able to see your objectives, and you should have a place where you can easily refer to them and discuss them. Starting to see a pattern? This same process works for giving instruction, our third event. You might choose all kinds of tools from any category and embed them into your lesson plan. Now, this isn't to say that each category is perfectly suited for each event. Take, for example, the next event of instruction, practice and collaboration. On our lesson plan template, we often call this guided and independent practice. Whatever you call it, the basic concept of this event should be clear to you. After you have given instruction, it is a time for students to practice and master new information. So, are there any tools to help students to practice and work together to master information? Of course! Category 1 seems like a perfect choice, and we haven't really mentioned it yet. Word processing applications and word cloud generators. Here in practice and collaboration, you can certainly have students write things down in Microsoft Word and share with a neighbor, create a word cloud based on information they just heard, and so forth. And doesn't Category 4 look like a perfect fit for this event of instruction? These are tools specifically designed for helping learners to collaborate and communicate with each other. All right, I hope you have the idea so far. But to be sure, let's pause here to allow you time to do some critical thinking yourself. I want you to look at Produce and Demonstrate Proficiency, our fifth event of instruction. Imagine that students have been working hard, understanding the lesson you just taught, and you are now interested in having them demonstrate that they know their stuff. What kinds of tools might help you to test their knowledge? What kind of tools might help them to create products that demonstrate their knowledge to you? I'd love to give you tips and ideas of the tools I would choose, but to be honest, I think at this point it is important that you start thinking and designing on your own. Learn the categories, learn the tools, and apply them to your lesson plan design. Got it? Good. One last word of advice in regards to the last event of instruction, assessment and feedback. Here, your job as a teacher is that of an evaluator. In the fifth event, students just demonstrated their proficiency. They produced some sort of artifact, written or spoken. And your job now in this sixth and final event is to assess how well they did. While I hesitate to discuss any one commercial tool over another, for obvious reasons, I believe that the ubiquity of Microsoft Word makes it important to discuss for just a moment. Many of you may be familiar with the fact that you can review student work on Microsoft Word and provide feedback through tracked changes and comments. If you don't know how that works, I highly recommend it as a teacher. Google Docs has a similar type of ability to give feedback and has the added convenience of giving feedback instantaneously and having several people collaborate simultaneously on the same document. When giving feedback to students, especially at the junior high, high school, and university level, I truly recommend getting to know those two tools. There are plenty of tutorials online for you to explore how to give quality feedback using Word and Google Docs. All right, 9 categories and 6 events. I know that is a lot, but I hope you are beginning to see that the 9 categories, while useful to understand groups of tools, can be used throughout a lesson plan in a variety of ways. I hope you see that by understanding how to combine both the 9 categories and the 6 events of instruction, you truly begin to see how you are in charge of the technology and not the other way around. If you truly learn these tools and then consider them carefully throughout the lesson planning process, you will begin to control the universe of technology rather than having it control you. Unless, of course, well, you'll see soon enough. See you next time.